All right. Hello and welcome to the Eatsy Doodles podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Hilton, and on today's episode, I'd like to give you my first impressions of The Lighthouse. It's the best movie I've seen so far this year. I don't know what to tell you. It's an automatic masterpiece that film enthusiasts will appreciate years after it's released, combining styles both new and old. Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe. Yeah, what's not to like in that equation? And it's directed by the guy who directed The Witch. So yeah, The Lighthouse is a psychological horror movie about two men who decide to be the lighthouse keepers, or wickies, according to the dialect of this movie, of a New England island in the 1890s. So these are just my first impressions. I know it's like a mess. I highly doubt I'm gonna rewatch it and be like, oh wait, this movie's actually completely garbage. No, I just thinking, no, no, no. These are just my first impressions because I feel like analyzing it just after the first watch, after missing 20 minutes of Willem Dafoe's dialogue at the beginning of the movie, I figured, no, I can't do that. But I'll let you know what I think of technical aspects, rather than the storytelling aspects. Now, if I had to compare this movie to anything else, The Shining comes to mind almost immediately, because the level of cabin fever is so high, I got head congestion just from watching this movie. See, because when you have a fever, that's one of the symptoms you get. In all seriousness, I can't express to you how happy I am this movie exists, and how annoyed I am at how hard it is to actually analyze it. Since I am such a dumb sack of beans. So, like I said, gonna put that off for another day, or maybe not. Maybe I'll just let you figure out for yourselves what everything means. But let's talk about the technical aspects. Robert Eggman has a very distinct voice as a director. I wouldn't consider any of the shots in this movie to be flat or even, too typical. Even if the framing is traditional during scenes early on in this movie, where Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe talk to each other, he still gives an odd sense of symmetry of his shots. Just to make those scenes more unsettling than, what they would be if they were shot more traditionally. Traditionally, what does that mean? I don't know. Something that looks like other movies, And certainly this one borrows a little bit, but he tweaks with it a little bit, I would reckon. But the way, that scenes are lit, prevent shots from appearing static or cold. And there's a weird sense of warmth in this movie. I'll try not to use the word weird again, but compared to Mr. Eggman's previous project, The Witch, the color correction and choices for the gradient in that movie seem distant. Cold and motionless in The Witch. A few scenes really burst through with a color palette that stands out. Whereas in The Lighthouse, although it's in black and white, every scene is shaded in very vivid ways. Both characters are really, really covered in shadows a lot. And if you know anything about low-key lighting, then you know what you're in for. Now in the olden days, they often chose more colorful, more colorful outfits to wear to make up for the lack of an obvious contrast in hues. But in this movie, it's almost as if, Dr. Robotnik wanted to embrace the pure grayness by making everything really gray. It's not even just pure black and white. This film is just really, really gray. The protagonists don't even light that brightly, as I've said. There's not a white or yellow hue that lingers over them. Just the natural light of the sun and whatever lanterns and maybe even candles they use for indoor scenes, but only partially covering their faces. The only source of light that can shroud and encompass a face entirely, and make it seem overly bright comes from the very lighthouse itself. Yet, this movie still manages to hypnotize the viewers, despite visually ridding them of that sense of arousal we're used to getting when we see a more modern piece of cinema like Avengers Endgame. That's right. I called Avengers Endgame a modern piece of cinema. Martin Scorsese. As much as I love Taxi Driver, which is my second favorite movie of all time, if you continue ranting about what cinema is and isn't, when it really doesn't matter that much, I will die on the inside. But yeah, if we could just, disable free speech amongst people over the age of 75, that'd be great. That's a joke. He just wrote The Irishman, which is apparently supposed to be good. Everyone thinks it's good. What are the odds it's not going to be good? It's got Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, and freaking Robert De Niro in it. Like, come on. But yeah, that's poor taste. That joke, really discriminatory towards the elderly. I know. I apologize for my mistakes. But yeah, genres. Most people define The Lighthouse as a psychological horror movie, and I would as well, to a certain extent, but it also shares attributes with 40s noir films and art films from the 70s. Now, I haven't seen too many noir films, but this film certainly tackles similar topics, that were handled in a Double Indemnity. If you don't know what that word is, you never will. And Eraserhead. Yeah, I honestly, what does indemnity mean? I already forgot. It's like, okay, it's like insurance thing. It's an insurance thing. Okay, what's the definition? Yeah, it's basically, okay, so, right, so what it is in that movie, Double Indemnity, is basically, you get life insurance, but, say a person dies from an accident, if they die from a really rare accident, they can get double. Whatever. And, Double Indemnity and Eraserhead, which isn't noir, but I figured I'd bring it up anyway. So, the screen aspect ratio is even identical to that of old-fashioned movies before widescreen was a thing. Going into even more detail on how it's like those movies would probably ruin the experience if you haven't seen it yet. But, just from a technical lighting aspect alone, it certainly is very, akin to those movies. Boy, my assortment of synonyms that I have chosen to use today are quite pretentious. So let's move on to the acting. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are fantastic. Both of them should win an Oscar. It's very as simple as that. As much as I love Joaquin Phoenix, I think Pattinson goes to depths of disturbing emotion that I don't think, were possible for Joaquin to go to in Joker, simply due to the limitations and repetitive nature of Joker's scripted actions in that movie. Now, since my last episode, I have downgraded Joker to a low 8. Womp womp womp. Which is great, just to let you know. I'm not giving it a 7, so don't worry about it. But like I said, it's still great. So I guess now is a good time to bring up my rating scale. So, a 10. It's a masterpiece, at least in my eyes. Even if could have flaws to other people. Yeah, they don't really affect my experience in any way. You know, 9, fantastic with one flaw that bothers me when I first saw flaw. Yeah, when I first saw Joker, yeah, the Wayne family nonsense. That ticked me off immediately. Yeah, it was a low 9. Yeah, it wasn't a high 9. It's not like the Truman Show where I had to be really nitpicky and be like, oh, well, that was a bit of a goof in that shot. Yes. Yeah. I could give Truman Show a 10, but I just, I love it to death, but I mean, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I don't care. It's already at a high 9. It's one of my favorite movies with flaws in them. But yeah. Okay, so following 9. 8 is great. 7 is good. Gilbert Grape. Jeez, I really hope you can't hear Mr. Frank right now, because he is a loud boy. Yeah, Gilbert Grape, unless you really hate Johnny Depp. I'm just so used to saying freaking Robert De Niro at this point. Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio, if you hate those two. But yeah, what's a movie that is just universally good? 7. 7, 7, 7. Ad Astra. That's a perfect example of a movie that is a 7 out of 10. Pretty goofy. That's why I didn't talk about it. Because it's like, well, it's got great visuals and a goofy story. Not much more to dissect. And a 6 is fine. I can put up with it. Yeah, I watched Dreamgirls recently. Yeah. 5. Green Book. Yeah. 4. Bad. 5 is indifferent. 4. Bad. 3. Detective Pikachu. Yeah, disappointing. Yeah. Well, actually, 4 is disappointing, and 3 is bad, in my opinion. Oh, yeah, 5 could be disappointing. It's why you got it. Most critics just use 5-star scales without the half stars. They don't have to come up with as many. Different imaginary metrics. But yeah, 3 is definitely just plain bad. Early Man. I watched that. My mom gave that a 4. She doesn't even give movies below. So she gave The Lighthouse at least a 6.5. She still appreciated from an acting and technical standpoint. But it's definitely the story that people might be a little bit split on. Or at least the ending. But Early Man, terrible movie. She gave that a 4. I gave it a 3. Terrible. I expected more from the people who made Wallace and Gromit. But let's move on. 2. Turds for the Eyes. Tall Girl being a prime example of this. Why did I give it a 2 instead of just a 1? I don't know. It just... Because of all the memes about the stupid Nike joke in the movie, I guess. And 1 would be movies I would probably rate a 0, but Letterboxd, the website that I use to rate movies, does not allow people to rate movies a 0. This implies, the one that I give disaster movie implies that the movie has merit. It's like, oh, 1/10 of the movie's okay. There's nothing in that movie. It's so garbage. I watched that movie when it came out with my family. It came out like freaking 2010, I think. I got my little computer. I can just look it up real quick. When did this movie come out? It came out in 2008. No, I thought it was 2008, but then I was like, no, surely it must have been a couple years later. I watched it when I was 7. Great choice, Mom and Dad. We have it on DVD. The first movie I ever saw. In my life. That my mind could think critically on and recognize almost immediately that it was absolute garbage. Yeah, there's always a part of me, that wanted to revisit it because I was like, I remember watching this in my childhood, but for some reason I don't want to come back to it. And I come back to it, and it's like, oh, that's why. It's because it's garbage, right? I should have known. Should have known. Yeah, yeah. The DVD cover is probably the best part of the movie. Yeah, very chaotic. It's not much of a compliment when you've seen the movie. But yeah. Even back then, I was still tolerable of some pretty lousy and cheesy stuff. I still am. Spy Kids 3 isn't that bad in my... Well, it's bad, but it's not that bad. It's not disaster movie bad. But yeah, the reason that's why I gave Joker an 8 is because I gave Get Out an 8, and I enjoy Joker less than Get Out. Get Out just has much better storytelling elements, than Joker. Yeah, and I'd rather see Get Out again than see Joker, if I'm being frank. I've already seen Get Out twice, so I'm like, or 3 times. I feel like I've seen it 3 times. I mean, I know the plot pretty well, if I'm being honest. You know every single line of dialogue? No. But I pretty much know the order of things that happens in this movie. Do not quiz me on that. So enough about my rating system to make up for the time I wasted for that. I'll just simply quote Roger, the Eggman, director man. Pattinson goes through physical torture, and Defoe goes through emotional torture. As actors, at least, I mean. Because they filmed the island on an... they filmed the movie on an actual rock island for a month. And it rained a lot. I mean, just the fact that the cameras sustained little to no visible water damage and drippage, during any of the shots in this movie that were outdoors, that I remember at least. Just a testament to the amount of planning and dedication that went into this movie. I mean, the direction is fantastic, deliberate, panning, slow yet flashy, but most importantly, stylistic. And that sentence, pretentious. Thank you. Heck, I even think certain shots call back to a Charlie Chaplin sort of direction. There are shots where Pattinson is just working outside, and when he comes out of this big pipe thing, I just think to myself, wow, this looks like a Charlie Chaplin comedy. Yeah, I've never seen, someone come back. Oh yeah, it does share similar themes to modern times too, depending on your interpretation of it. The working man versus the boss. Yes. Well, that doesn't really happen in modern times, if I'm being honest. Outside of, like, the opening scene in that movie, which is, like, 20 minutes long. Such a long freaking scene. Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen someone combine so many different direction styles since Mr. Robot came out. Sam Esmail. Albeit, that TV show more or less incorporates storytelling elements from a wide variety of shows and films rather than direction or visual elements. But, I'll stand by my poor comparison. But yeah, it's really just the amalgamation of all these things combined with the story, which is on a plane of existence that only, the Eggman brothers will understand completely. And with that being said, it's, I'll understand completely. So, let me just sum up by saying, this movie is a 10 out of 10. You should see it if you hadn't, if it's still in theaters by the time I release this. And if you have seen it, see it again with subtitles, because I had no freaking clue what Willem Dafoe was saying half the time. So yeah, he has a pretty heavy accent in this movie. So if you're not educated in the language of Sailor Mouth, you might be screwed for a good bit. So yeah. Alright. Alright, that's today's episode of the Yeetsy Doodles podcast. I will see you next time. Alright. Cheers.